Thanks for joining us. Your first question today will be from Jason Kersey, and then we'll go to Joe Bettner. Jason?
Yeah. Hey, Alex. I think earlier this season we sort of pressed you a little bit on the lack of takeaways and the struggles there. But in the last four games, you've had eight. Um, did you change something to sort of did you change something about the way you emphasize that over the last 4 weeks or anything like that? Or is this just sort of the natural progression of your system?
Yeah, I think it probably just speaks to our inability to do it prior to the last 4 weeks, as much as anything. I mean, the emphasis obviously continues to be there, and one of the things that showing the guys NFL film, showing guys what those takeaways look like. Trying to emulate the model, saying, okay, well, if we're not getting them, what's it look like? Obviously, if we can't show them themselves doing it, and obviously we've been able to in practice, so that's a little bit like extreme, maybe a little bit negative. On the same token, if you're not getting something done. That you look at, okay, this is what they look like. And one of the consistent things that you see when you watch the NFL film is it's everything we talk about in terms of straining. It so often isn't the one where the ball just throw it right in the chest. You're all by yourself. It's like catching a punt, in your backyard, and it's not that simple. It's not that easy. A lot of times it's the pressure up front that creates an errant throw. It might be a tip pass because like we've talked about before in terms of the ball comes out a little bit early, the receiver's not anticipating all those things, and it's discipline in your eyes. If you're playing zone coverage, instead of having a head on a swivel and being late to see the ball, it's having disciplined eyes on the quarterback because that's on that particular play where you're placing them. And so in any event, no, not a big change. But certainly it probably highlights our failure to do it, prior to that. And so that's something that every weekend is just a critical element to our success.
Thanks, Alex.
Joe Bettner and then Ryan Aber.
I was gonna say on that kind of note, Alex, it seems like the defensive front, especially with like the way they're able to get pressure on quarterbacks. I mean, is that just as far as like them being able to knock down passes at right next to the quarterback? I mean, is that just something that you've seen them like just have to switch instinctually? It just seems like that happened quite a bit against Baylor, but I'm just curious, just with the kind of the technique and the maneuvers, where do you think that's kind of coming from, the success they're getting on pressuring quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think there's several ways you can affect a passer. Obviously the number one, the chief way you do it is you go sack them. And that involves, again, a number of different things, whether you're blocked or unblocked, an effort play. There's a number of different ways to get home and ultimately get him on the ground. And the second thing you can do is obviously, create pressure. And once again, you can do that several ways, one of which is, get there just before, the ball comes out and possibly, as you mentioned, get a hand up. The other thing we talk about is push the pocket, where you're getting blocked, but it's not a stalemate. You're trying to keep your feet alive and put the offensive lineman in the lap of the quarterback, to a certain extent. That can affect throws as well. And I think as much as anything, I think it's becoming more of an expectation that it's not okay just to simply be blocked and say, well, I lost my one-on-one pass rush on this particular play. Someone else is going to have to make a play. And so I think, collectively across the board defensively, I think, some of the success that we've had is, less of an acceptance that I'm one of 11 out there and the other 10 will make the play and I'll be in the appropriate spot and hopefully not hurt the defense, as opposed to again, I think what you're seeing is 11 guys attempted to the best of their ability, obviously within structure to have an impact on every single play. And so I think that kind of speaks to it. There's a willingness there to get your hand up, because that affects plays no different than a DB that knocks the ball down on the back end of things. And obviously, I got to highlight Coach Kane and Coach Thibodeau, who do a great job with those guys up front.
Thanks, Alex.
You'll go to Ryan and then Eric Bailey.
Yeah, Alex, I know a lot of what you just said probably applies to him, but Isaiah Thomas had a big game the other night, obviously, and you said what you said after the game about Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. What have you seen from him since he's moved back with Ronnie coming back, and maybe what did he take from the early part of the season that's helped him stay productive?
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that we talked several times about going all the way back to fall camp, and then in camp he was playing end, he was playing on the inside, kind of doing both as the the ever changing roster that we've had this year, and so. I think what he's found is the ability to be effective regardless of the position that he's in. I mean, some of the production they had last week was when he's back on the edge, and so but he's taken that confidence to any time he's been asked to play in an interior gap, and so is it different? There's more same as than there is differences. Anytime you're in the front, it's a single gap defense, regardless if you start on the edge or you start in the interior. So you're penetrating gaps as opposed to playing in the men. So we don't ask the interior guys to do a whole lot different than what the outside guys do that way. And so there is some carryover. But no, it's amazing what confidence can do, and it's real confidence. What the thing that is so difficult from a coaching standpoint is you want so badly to instill it in guys, but there's only one real way for guys to feel it and ultimately get it. It's not just our praise, which obviously we do a good. We make a point to praise them for the positive stuff, but they got to feel themselves doing. They got to do it in the moment. And you're seeing a guy that oh, by the way, he doesn't miss a rep of practice. He's there every single day, works his tail off. It's not it's everything you try to explain to guys that's necessary to have the type of year that he's having. Okay, take Tuesday off, awesome, and go play good on Saturday. And they look at you like, well, it's coach speak or something along those lines. And so he's just been a great visual to our guys. Not evaluating calls or evaluating jobs, within a call, just does do his best of his ability. And I'm excited for him that he's getting rewarded from a production standpoint. Obviously, it had a major impact on our defense this year.
Appreciate it, Alex.
Sure.
Eric Bailey and then Bob Brisbillo.
Hey, Alex, we are now 1 week from the early signing day. How would you say your defensive staff has overcome the challenges of recruiting this year? And also, there's always reflection 3 or 4 years down the road, but how unique do you think it will be looking back at this new class coming in?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think as you're alluding to, I think time will tell. I mean, I certainly think, in some ways it as unique as this year has been with the use of, the FaceTimes and that, in some ways, despite the fact that we're not seeing these guys in person like we otherwise would have at certain pockets of the year, it's almost thrusted and made us even more comfortable with doing that more often, as opposed to, maybe a once a week thing. You kind of do it. It just becomes second nature. And I think part of it is, their willingness and ability to do that. There was such a long period of time where no one had a whole lot going on. And so they're sitting at home, you're sitting at home. And so in some ways you kind of have more conversations and maybe more, real conversations over the course of time. So that's been a unique thing in terms of learning guys or getting to know guys in a different way, and I guess trying to find a positive in all this, maybe in a little bit of a deeper way even too. But no, I think recruiting is it's always two things. One, obviously, you want to recruit a high level guy, and you want to do everything possible to get an elite guy in the program. The second thing is the hedge against risk, is making sure that that individual bring in here is not a boom or bust. And so that's where we're at in 2020 as we transition into 2021 is how much do and be honest with yourself in terms of what you know and what you don't know. And then, quite frankly, you don't always know everything about every guy. You look at all the NFL does, from the combines, from scouts to area scouts to they have a whole section of their obviously organization completely devoted to this thing. They interview them. I mean, they learn a lot more about players than we ever do, and they make mistakes. And so that's one thing that you're constantly in the back of your mind, making sure that you bring the right guys, because it's not ultimately the ones you don't get. It's the ones you bring in that are good enough to produce at a place like in Oklahoma. And so it's that combination, and then it will continue to be until we can leave campus, and that to make sure that we're bringing in the right guys. So no, time will tell, but very excited about where we're at this point.
Thank you, Alex.
Bob Prisbillo, and then John Hoover.
Alex, you obviously with how crazy last week was, but did it drive home the message about cross training and everything that you've done, and let people know that there's a reason why I kept preaching this?
Yeah, it's you don't kind of pull the room in terms of what they're thinking in the moment or after the moment, but a little bit of the sense I just got from our guys, and you never have a complete pulse of every individual guy, and not suggesting that I know what they're thinking, but probably more thought process going in from a coaching standpoint than I even felt from the players. I think and a lot of that stems from the fact that this year, unlike a lot of the years, although, quite frankly, we had a little more of this go on last year in terms of guys getting injured and stuff like that than maybe most. But for the players themselves, and which ultimately is the most important thing, is the guys that came in, expected to play well, and then guys had to step up. What you have to do in those moments, and when we failed in this regard, is you can't say that individual that's coming in is we're going to put it all on him. It's important for the other 10 guys, and whatever the number is, whether it's we're down 4 guys, the other 8 guys that aren't new have possibly have established themselves. They have to raise their game. You don't just put it on the number 2 that's now getting number 1. Yes, sure, he's got to elevate his game, but if you're circling that and say that's going to be the answer to your Saturday, then that's obviously a poor job by the other individuals, and also that's them. And one of the things we messaged to them was having that understanding that your circumstances can't define your career. I would be better if this guy was playing next to me. Well, he's not. So what are you willing to give up, and how much? One of the things we talked to the guys about is how much power do you want to give to another man? If he's here, or if he does this, if he does that, then I'll be really good. Man, I don't know if that's the greatest recipe for success, to put your career in the hands of someone else. And so, no, I like to think that some of the messages land in that way.
Okay, let's go to John Hoover and then James Hale.
Hey, Alex. We asked you this last year, but the way obviously 2020 has gone, with Shane just having left, with your defense now doing even better this year than it did last year. I wonder if maybe your thoughts have evolved a little on the circumstances that would lead you to becoming a head coach.
Yeah, no, I think that's a constant thing. When you're a position coach, there's always that whatever you want to call it, I don't know, the twinkle maybe, or that thought process of, I would like to, have an opportunity to run my own defense, to be the guy at the end of the table. And obviously you do that, and you don't think about all the maybe stresses that come with it either. But, and I think it's natural for a lot of coaches to kind of think about those things. Again, more off-season conversations in terms of our thought process that kind of goes into that. No, I think it's something that you aspire to be, and obviously opportunities have to present themselves. And like you talk about, Coach Beamer, what a tremendous opportunity for him, and over a 21 year career, obviously put himself in the position to take advantage of it. And so ultimately, that's what you want to do, is you want to be the best coach you can possibly be. And I aspire to be the best coach in America, and believe me, people let me know all the time that I'm not. But that's if you do that, then you may have some opportunities, and they got to be the right opportunities. But no, the nice thing about being in Oklahoma, you don't have to get the classifieds out and look for opportunities. Very, very fortunate to be here.
Thank you.
Okay, go to James Hale.
Alex, you praised Robert Barnes last week for his unselfishness and his versatility. So now you're a week down the road, and you know how well he played or didn't play, in the game. But what is your game plan for him, and some of the things maybe that you've learned from having to use some different players going into the next couple of games?
Yeah, the thing that we've done over the course of this year, probably more than in years past, it played a lot of guys, and that's something that we'll look to continue to do. Really have made a real point to, kind of make the decision on those reps on Thursdays, based on how they practice, And real bluntly tell the guys, practice well, we'll put you in the game. Don't practice well, then don't look at me on Saturday and say, put me in, coach, you know. And so, you know, he among the other guys took advantage of an opportunity last week to get reps in the game. And I don't know if we've talked about this, but talked about the defense before. You know, opportunities are Monday through Friday, reps are in the game. And so often kids look at it the exact opposite way. In that, you know, I'll take reps during the week, and then you'll give me an opportunity in the game. No, the opportunity is during the week of practice. And then the reps, you know, come on the back end of it. At least that's how I process it or try to communicate it. So, no, him like most, it's the same thing. It's another week. Obviously, you know, game reps, you know, certainly is part of the evaluation tool. And so he'll have an opportunity to, you know, fight for those reps this coming week. Is repping still at DB land, you know, got maybe not your exact question, but part of it, you know, and part of that is just where we're at in the year, you know, a couple weeks left and obviously a big one this weekend on the road and you know, some guys coming back and, you know, are they going to be at 100% and all those things. So it just makes sense. But no, him like most we'll make a decision tomorrow in terms of how and what they'll play.
Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
And Keegan Renaud.
Sorry about that. Yeah, Alex, I'm just kind of curious heading into with everything that goes, you know, within this process and evaluating guys. Is it tough to kind of get the body type and the athleticism? I know you kind of answered this a little bit ago. How tough is it to kind of get that gauge? And I know you're trying to change the body types and everything with that. Yeah,
and what you can't do is you can't simplify it to the point where, you know, everybody that's 6'2", we're going to recruit and say, okay, that's the one attribute that, you know, I'm 6'2" and I shouldn't play at Oklahoma. You know, I mean, it's, you know, so you don't want to simplify it to that extreme. It's the same thing if, well, this kid's really fast. Okay, that's part of the conversation. You know, not every fast guy deserves to be at Oklahoma. And so, you know, with that, it's trying to build the case for the individual, and then sometimes you fall in love with a guy and you got to build a case against him. I mean, that's part of the risk element of things, and that's the appropriate thing to do. But, you know, how many does he check the necessary boxes from an academic standpoint? That's been, again, in other years, it's, you know, now if you struggle in the classroom is because he's on Zoom all, you know, some guys, this is a unique situation for a high school, you know, junior, senior type of thing, how they finished the semester last year. So that's not even as, you know, I guess telling as maybe in years past. But no, you're dependent on a lot of things. You're dependent on, you know, do they play multiple sports? Do you have the video of them playing basketball? Okay, you see some explosion. You know, did they have track times? Well, they didn't run track last year because of you know, things getting canceled. Okay, well, maybe okay, what was their sophomore track time because they didn't have the junior year track time? And then you kind of play the game in your head. Okay, well, if they ran that at this particular year, you got to assume, you know, a little bit of maturation, they'll be a little bit faster. And so you're trying to connect dots. And as I describe it, I don't mean to make it sound like this is a dramatic process. You know, it's the matrix of, but it is. What you don't want to do is oversimplify it, and you got to be honest with yourself. And I just keep thinking about, and we talked about it as a staff, is that if you don't know, don't pretend like you know, because a lot of times that's when you get yourself in a trap, you know. And we've always are conscious about, well, who's recruiting them, and that's the responsible thing to do because that generates a market for an individual. But, you know, this year, you know, maybe we saw him, maybe they didn't. You know, maybe we actually had a better evaluation of them because we saw them in junior basketball, you know, because, you know, again, it was a tight window, and maybe they didn't. And vice versa is true, right? And this is the guy we identified. We didn't get a chance to see him in January because you can only go so many places. We had every intention to go see him in the spring. You know, what if, you know, when I'm at school A, they were at school B and this individual's there. And so, no, it's very unique. You know, you once again, I keep going back to that be honest with yourself. Don't pretend like you know something that you don't, and then you know, make decisions based on that, again, to the best of your ability.